Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at using inheritance with derived and base classes. We're going to look at polymorphism and using abstract classes. So the way we're going to do that is for our library management system, our library application, we are going to build users. So the first thing we'll do here is add a new class. We'll call this class user. And I'm going to make this public so that the rest of my program can see it. Abstract. So we're going to make user abstract. This will force the polymorphic relationship. I will cover that in a short minute, but what that means is I cannot directly build with this type. We'll cover that in a minute though when we start instantiating the variable. First, let's add a few fields or properties in this case. A few properties, we're just going to do the name, an email field, or properties. These will be instantiated when the object, or populated, initialized when the object is instantiated. Here we're going to build a private field. This will be the bread and butter. This will be the main focus of our program, of our base classes here, which is this number of checkout books. We're going to build a user class that allows us to have different users, and based on the type of user, if they're allowed to keep checking out books. You'll notice here I've used the protected keyword here. That's an important detail. We want to keep this information private, but when you start using polymorphism, the lower level base or derived classes can't see this variable, so it needs to be protected rather than private. So protected means that the derived classes can use this variable. And then we'll build the constructor here. It's going to take the name and email. Then we're going to define a few more details inside of our user base class here. So here we're building the footprint, the outline of our definition of what a user is. And then in our derived classes, we're going to implement part of that, or we'll implement part of it here. I'll get into the specifics of that here after I write a couple of lines of code. So the first thing I want to point out here is that this is also abstract. This will force the abstract keyword here forces our derived classes to write this method, and virtual here gives our derived classes the option to write the method or not write the method. But like I said, this is our blueprint, so this is how all the derived classes are going to look. Now virtual means it's optional. I'll cover that in just a moment here. Let's keep getting some of this code down. This is going to modify this variable here. And I'm going to copy this and just change couple of details. This is on book returned. So all this is doing is it's gonna increment or decrement this field if the book is returned or reserved. So here's our base class. This is the foundation, you can think of it, where we're going to place our important structural elements, right? Abstract here means that I have to build this in my classes that inherit the user class. Virtual means it's optional, so I can choose to, or I can use this default. Building the code this way really provides a lot of reusability. You're going to see that I can just start using a user object everywhere, and I gain access to all the logic that I built underneath it. So let me start building our derived classes here. We call this one librarian user, and then we use :user here. This is how we inherit from user here. This is our base class. So we inherit everything inside of here. You can see it's highlighting in green here. So librarian user here is going to start inherit. It's going to grab, it's going to take in all of this information here, and it's going to have access to it. Now we see an underline here because of this specific abstract class. I need to write a definition for that. If this wasn't here, this would be fully accepted, given I need to initialize the constructor as well. So we'll do that real quick. I don't want any typos, so I'm going to copy that. String name, string email. And then here I can say I'm using the base constructor. So the information coming in through the base constructor. And our code is happy. If I deleted this, you could see that librarian user requires us to write this method. That's what it's telling us. If it's abstract, we have to write that method. So this is one way to program in some rules, some structure, something that says, hey, this method should be implemented by each of your derived classes. And in this instance, it makes sense to force that to be built because that's the main logic that we're building here. Each user is going to have its own borrowing set of rules. So we want to make sure that we have to write this method for each case of our derived classes here. Now, the only thing we need to do is return a value. We're going to let the librarian user always return true here, and that'll create some simplicity. And we'll just, that's a nice way to build the librarian user for now. They are a super user, right? We're going to let them have full access. Then we're going to create a regular user here. And we're going to create a premium user. And instead of returning true here, we'll add a little bit of logic. You'll see that everything else remains the same. They're using the same constructor here. The space constructor over here is, you can see when I double click here, it's calling this constructor, the base constructor here. All right, so let's implement the can borrow book. I am just going to copy the logic over here. It's not too significant. All we're doing is checking this variable up here. if that variable is a certain number, above a certain number, it will return true or false based upon that information. I am missing one detail here. Typo. Checked out books. So this is all we need for our user class. And we've done a little bit, we've created our base class. We have 3 derived classes. And now the code to use this user class is actually really short and pretty straightforward. So we only need to write a couple of things. The first thing we need to do is we're gonna build inside our library book manager, which is the logic that's our buttons using in our GUI, right? Our button GUI, you click these 2 buttons and we get some interaction from our user interface. Excuse me. So let's build a user here. And now, so on the left-hand side, you can see that I'm building a user object. But on the right-hand side, I can't build a user because it's abstract, but I'm going to show that here. I need the new keyword. So we're going to get an error telling us that cannot create an instance of the abstract class. So that is the one key difference of using an abstract class is I can't instantiate this specific object. I need to instantiate one of these 3 down below. So rather than just a user, let's do a regular user. And a regular user can only check out 1 book. Otherwise, we're going to block that person from checking out. And what's nice is we inherited these 2 functions. I don't need to rewrite them unless I want to. And then the only thing I rewrote was this. But if I wanted to, I can reuse the same code. Say a different user. I get a premium user here. Let's say that this is a modular. We don't hard code this in. Someone logs in, and based on their login information, we can create a regular user, a librarian user, or a premium user. So this code that I've highlighted would be defined by how they logged in. But then all this code that I'm going to write below, it's just a couple of lines, is still going to work for that user because of this inheritance structure. So let's continue. We have nothing inside of here. The only thing we need to write is we want to write right here. We're going to look at the user object. If they can't borrow a book, we're going to return. So this is just going to cut off the logic, the flow. If the user is not allowed to borrow a book, we aren't going to continue with the rest of the program. We just kick them back to the main screen. And then let's assume the situation where they do. If they do check out the book, we reserve the book. And then the last thing we want to do here is user on book returned. So if they click return book and everything was successful using all the previous logic, then we run this function, which we're just decrementing and incrementing this integer here. We're seeing if the number of books they checked out meets the rule that we wrote earlier. For a regular user, they get to check out 1 book. a premium user can check out 5 books. So let's run our code and show that it works. So we have a book checked out here, and we should be blocked from checking out any other books until we return that book. So now we have a return date, so now we should be able to check out another book. Remember, this is books that are currently checked out. These are the history. And let's check if our program does the exact same thing for the premium user as we would hope. So the premium user can check out 5 books. Our librarian user already was able to check out infinite books. So let's check out a few of these books here. I'm just clicking 5 books at random. Right, it's the top 5. And now we can't check out anymore. We've blocked that logic from occurring. But we can return these books. You can see that we're getting a return date popping up here. And it's clearing the physical inventory out. And now we can reserve books again. I'm a big Harry Potter Philosopher's Stones fan, so I'm checking out multiple. But you can see that I'm not able to check out more. So we are implementing the logic as intended. And yeah, this is a great way to kind of be introduced to polymorphism. So this is our polymorphism here. We're able to morph this user object into a bunch of different derived classes. We could also use librarian user. And that's really nice because look how simple our code is in this instance. Look at all that functionality we got out of this library book manager, writing 3 lines of code. User on book returned, on book reserved, and can borrow book. With just those, we only need to call those methods 3 times, and we can build all the rules and logic from the user class over here. And we don't have to build it all inside of our front-end classes or some of our servicing classes here. We're able to focus on building some of the class responsibilities inside the class. It's user responsibilities inside the user class itself. But yeah, that's all I'm going to cover in this video. I hope that was instructive, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.